Hi, welcome back to SouFLoTV again, everybody. It is your host with the most. How did Bob Marley die? If you ask a lot of people how Bob Marley died, you will hear a lot of conspiracy theories. You will hear quite a few different versions of what happened to Bob Marley. But here are some details behind his final years and his 1981 death. Bob Marley, the reggae icon, I would say a global icon who transcended reggae music but used reggae as the vehicle to spread a message that is still so relevant today. Bob passed away at only 36 years old in 1981. His life story is riveting. I would say it's like a movie, but guess what? They just made a movie out of it. And even that movie was only compartmentalized as only one part of Bob Marley's life. Someone said in order for you to capture Bob Marley's entire life's journey, you would need a series, like a Netflix series with many episodes, because one movie is not enough. Now, make sure you go out and see the One Love movie for sure, but those of us who are really Bob Marley enthusiasts, we are actually hoping that Netflix actually comes about with a series where we can watch Bob's life unfold in episodes. Now, let's get into the details. So, Bob Marley may have died some 40 odd years ago, and good God, it feels like he passed away last week because everything about him is so current. His legacy definitely lives on, and his legacy was about love. Now, the iconic Jamaican singer was at the peak of his career when he was diagnosed with a rare form of skin cancer in 1977. I remember coming up as a child, I was told that somebody injected him with something that looked like cancer, but it was meant to kill him. So in other words, he was assassinated. Well, that is what I was told, and that is one of the piece of theories or conspiracy theories that are floating around out there. I'm sure you've probably heard the same. However, despite the news about his health, about him being diagnosed with this form of skin cancer, that did not stop Bob Marley. He was on his mission. He continued performing, he continued touring the world, and he continued releasing new music. They were telling him, Bob, you need to rest, bro. You need to lay down. You need to take it easy. You need to chill. You need to give your body some time to heal. Bob Marley, being who Bob Marley was, a rebel with a cause, Bob Marley just kept on going. He kept on going and kept on going. It wasn't until several years later that his cancer diagnosis began to affect his daily life. So, those who are under the impression like he was diagnosed in January of one year and he was dead by the end of the year, it is not so. Bob was told of his diagnosis years ahead of his death. And he was supposed to, or he was advised to chill, relax, take it easy. But nope, he continued performing, touring the world, releasing new music. And then, as the years went by, it started taking its effects on his life. Now, coming off of a 2-night run in Madison Square Garden in New York City, he had played Madison Square Garden 2 nights. Bob Marley was out playing soccer with his friends in Central Park, which was one of his favorite things to do. Bob Marley played soccer everywhere he went. The Rastafarians are people that are very much into a certain kind of diet, which they call ital, meaning everything you eat should be natural and come from the earth, and not so much into meat kinds, but more into like food provisions from the earth, fruits and vegetables and foods from the earth. And also they are into sweating and exercising, running, jogging on the beach, playing a game of soccer, etc. Bob Marley used soccer as not only his favorite pastime, but a way also for him to connect with his friends and a way also for him to stay fit while he was on the road. So there he was. He had just finished a 2-night run at Madison Square Garden in New York City, and Bob Marley was out in Central Park playing soccer with his friends when suddenly he had a seizure. And this is when everybody was put on guard. Oh my God. Now, after being taken to a local hospital, the doctors discovered there, now this is where the news came in, that the cancer that he had been warned about from years ago had now actually spread throughout his entire body. And he was given just a few months to live at this point. Despite the prognosis, Marley stayed positive like Bob Marley does. Bob said, listen, we're going to fight it. All right? We're going to fight it. Regardless of what the doctors might say or what they might do, we going to fight it. Seen? Because a Rasta never give up. Bob Marley was very deeply entrenched in his Rastafarian ideology, his Rastafarian thoughts, his natural remedies for whatever sickness, ailments that may have come about, roots, right? His friends and his personal physician, Dr. Carlton Pee Wee Frazier, recalled in the 2012 documentary that is titled Marley. And you can go look up the 2012 documentary titled Marley, where you will see him talk about what Bob Marley said after he had that seizure in Central Park and was informed of the grim news. I mean, that's heavy news to carry, right? You've been diagnosed years ago and you thought, my body is strong. I'll get rid of this thing. Plus, I'll take some natural things, and over the time, things will get better. And there you were, playing your favorite game of whatever it was you were playing, and now you're having a seizure, only to be told by the doctors that that thing that you have ignored for the last how many years has now spread throughout your entire body, and now you're at the end of life, right? So after seeking alternative medicinal treatments around the world, because of course it's Bob Marley and he's a Rasta man, and he wasn't into chemotherapy and put me in a hospital and hook me up to IVs and all that other stuff and pump me full of man-made drugs. So after seeking alternative treatments around the world, Bob Marley died on May 11th, 1981, and he passed away in Miami, Florida. Now, in 2024, Bob Marley would have been 79 years old. And on his 79th birthday, Earth Day, Ziggy Marley, who was only 12 years old at the time when his father passed away, Ziggy wrote a letter to Bob, which was read on his 79th birthday. It said, quote unquote, I miss everything about you, but mainly your presence. First of all, before I read this, you must put this in context and you must understand that Ziggy Marley, being 12 years old, at the age of 12, you know exactly what's going on around you. At the age of 12, you had 12 years with your parent that just passed away. And if this was a loving, caring parent, as Bob was to Ziggy, then you know that the child was deeply missing his father and deeply hurt. He penned a letter, which he read, 2024, for Bob's birthday, where he would have been 79. And again, it says, I miss everything about you, but mainly your presence. I listen to you. Your songs are always playing. When I go to my mother, Rita's house, music is on. Bob is on. Music is always around. He continued by saying, my smile is honoring you. I laugh, and it looks like your laugh. Pieces of you are a part of me. You would have loved being a grandpa. I see a little bit of something of you in these children every now and again. It's lovely to see. It's joyful. The grandkids get a piece of you through us. Everything we do is connected to you. So what happened to Bob Marley? Now that's deep. That's deep. And it is true. If you look at the children, if you look at the grandchildren, I keep saying to myself, Bob Marley's genes were super strong because even his grandchildren carry his looks and they carry his name. And it doesn't matter if the mother that they came from are Caucasian, like fully Caucasian or whatever, the children still resembles Bob Marley and they still carry even his voice. Like the boys carry his voice. His grandchildren, boys, carry his voice. That's something to think about. And I keep on going back to what Bob Marley sang. Them I got tired for see me face. And then he did an interview where he said, his life, his riches is life here on earth. Everlasting life here on earth. And I see what he means now. Because in essence, he never really left. That spirit just transcended, transformed, multiplied, and became even more powerful. Now, the question is, what happened to Bob Marley, really? And here are the details of his untimely death and the legacy that he left behind. So, Bob Marley died from what is called a acral lentiginous melanoma. And I say it slowly so everybody can get it. Acral lentiginous melanoma. It's a rare form of cancer which had spread throughout his body over several years because Bob, of course, had ignored a diagnosis from years ago. And this was according to the Skin Cancer Foundation about what this cancer is. He was first diagnosed in July of 1977 when he sought treatment for a lesion under his big toe on his right foot. See, Bob Marley first thought, this is a soccer injury because I was kicking the ball with no shoes. But an opinion from a second doctor who biopsied the spot actually revealed to him that this wasn't no soccer injury, this was cancer. Now, although the doctor recommended amputation of the toe, Bob Marley didn't want that. He didn't want him to chop off a piece of his toe. He didn't want him to remove his big toe from his right foot. He didn't want them to start taking pieces and parts of his body off. So he instead allowed them to remove the nail and some of the affected tissues for a skin graft. And with that done, Bob Marley continued without medical care for the next few years, all while releasing music and touring the world. Now, there are a lot of Bob Marley fans who to this day it's somewhat in their spirits bitter because they're like, man, if Bob had only just simply removed the toe, man, he would still be here. And then there are those who go even further and said if he had only just went for treatment from the first time he was diagnosed with this stuff, he would still be here. But I say to you like this, Bob Marley came, he lived, and he left. And although he left early, look at the magnitude of his work. Because a lot of humans will live to 100 years old and will not have accomplished the legendary status that Bob Marley has. Now, by September of 1980, Bob Marley's cancer had begun to overtake his body. Remember, he was diagnosed in 1977. So by September of 1980, the cancer had begun to spread throughout his body. And like I said before, after performing the 2 shows at Madison Square Garden, he collapsed. And he was taken to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where doctors discovered that his cancer had spread to his brain, to his lungs, and to other organs in his body. Now, in an interview with the New Yorker, Bob Marley's manager, Danny Sims, recalled one doctor saying that he had more cancer in him than I have ever seen in a living human being. And that is when he was given just a few months to live. That must have been so frightening. To hear a doctor say, you have more cancer in you than I have ever seen in a normal human being. Jeez. Or as Bob would say, ja. Now, he played his final concert in Pittsburgh just 2 days later. After that. After which his road manager, Alan Cole, decided that it was in his best interest to cancel the rest of the tour. And then Bob Marley reluctantly started undergoing chemotherapy treatment. But his health did not improve from this chemotherapy treatment. And when his health did not improve, Cole helped him to find alternative treatment. Cole went to a cancer seminar where he met a controversial German doctor whose holistic methods of care were non-toxic and primarily diet-based. If you know anything about chemo, you know that chemo is highly toxic. Chemo kills off all your cells while killing off all the cancer cells. So there was a German doctor whose name was Dr. Josef Issels, who was there. He is the only man on record to have cured the form of cancer, melanoma, that Bob Marley had. He was the top cancer specialist who did not use the controversial style of curing cancer. He was anti-system and he was against drug companies. This is what Cole told the Jamaica Observer. Now, in a review of Issels' studies, the American Cancer Society determined that there was no sufficient evidence to prove that the treatments that he used was actually effective. Now, Bob Marley traveled to Germany to enter Issels' clinic. He continued his treatment method for the next 8 months. By May of 1981, Bob Marley's health had deteriorated rapidly, and he elected to end this treatment as well. When did Bob Marley die? He died on May 11th of 1981. He was fighting. He was fighting for his life, and he did not start traditional treatment until way later. Many people will say he waited too long. Now, in the months before his death, Bob Marley received treatment in Germany, and when it became clear that his cancer was terminal, meaning he was going to die from it, he decided to head home to Jamaica to live out the remainder of his days. Bob Marley never made it back home, though. He fell ill on the flight. The plane landed in Miami, and he was taken to Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, where he died a few days later. His whole intention was to go back to Jamaica and to sleep away peacefully in his birth island of Jamaica, and he never made it there. He was 36 years old at the time of his death. Now, Marley's family was by his side at Cedar of Lebanon Hospital in the days before his death, thanks to his wife, Rita Marley, who brought all the children from Jamaica. Quote unquote, I brought up all the kids who was in Jamaica. Some of them not my kids, some from other mothers. So I gathered everyone and I said, come, Daddy wants to see you all. Rita recalls in the same documentary called Marley, which I told you about. Rita was a graceful woman, and she is still the queen, his queen, because not only did she bring their children, she brought all his children, right? His son Ziggy still remembers his father's final words of inspiration and wisdom to him. He told People magazine On your way up, take me up. On your way down, don't let me down. Wow. You could take that however you want to take it. On your way up, take me up. And on your way down, don't let me down. A father-son relationship is very deep and it's spiritual. It's a spiritual thing also, Ziggy said. He said that we shared a certain spiritual foundation, my father, myself, my brothers, and my sisters, so that word means exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing it. It just means that I don't have to think about it really because I was doing it anyways. Ziggy also debunked the internet rumor that Marley's last words were, "Money can't buy life." Ziggy Marley said that is not true. People go around with a lot of Bob Marley quotes saying Bob Marley said this and Bob Marley said that, when Bob Marley never said such things. Bob Marley's death made headlines worldwide and it came as a surprise to many of his fans who had last heard that he was going to be all right and that he was going to make it. And they had plans to be back on the road that year. Now, Marley was honored with a state funeral in Jamaica on May 20th of 1981. After a private church service for his family, thousands of mourners gathered to pay their final respect at the National Arena in Kingston. His wife Rita performed "Fly Away Home," and Prime Minister Edward Seaga gave a eulogy. Seaga spoke of Marley's childhood in Jamaica and his journey to becoming a top-ranking superstar in the entertainment world. He immortalized these words in his songs, "Fly Away Home." "One bright morning, when my work is over, I will fly away home." Now his soul will find contentment in the achievements of his life and rejoice in the greatness of Jah. Rastafari, Seaga added. Marley was later buried at his mausoleum near his hometown in 9 Mile in St. Anne Parish, Jamaica. He was buried with his Gibson Les Paul guitar, a Bible open to Psalm 23, and a stalk of cannabis, ganja. His mother, Sadella Booker, was buried in an adjacent mausoleum in 2008. And his brother Anthony Booker was interred in a tomb above Bob's in 1990, and fans still visit that gravesite to pay their respects to this very day. Now, even after Bob Marley's death, and long after his death, 40 years and counting, Bob Marley has remained a prominent fixture in the music industry and pop culture. He transcended reggae music and the small island of Jamaica to become an international icon. It is puzzling to me that even to this day, Bob Marley, who has done so much for Jamaica, even Bob Marley's "One Love" song is Jamaica's tourism song that draws so many people to the island where Bob Marley is from, yet Bob Marley is not listed as a hero in Jamaica. In 1994, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 2001, he was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That same year, he received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Recording Academy. In 2010, he was named one of Rolling Stone's 100 greatest artists of all time. And even with all these achievements, they still continue to play "One Love, One Heart, let's get together and feel alright," and to attract tourists from all over the world to come to Jamaica. Come to Jamaica and feel alright. And yet still, the government in Jamaica refuses to make Bob Marley a hero. We hope the day will come where he is also honored in his own homeland as a national hero. The truth about it is, Rastafarians and Rasta and people who looked like Bob Marley with that type of hair in dreadlocks, those people have had a hell of a struggle on the island of Jamaica. And the colonial masters in Jamaica still linger with their colonial rulership, even though they do not rule from out front. But remnants of their dictatorship still lingers, and certain things are still put in place. If Bob Marley had remained clean cut, as they would call it, he would probably be a national hero today, just like Marcus Garvey is. And if Marcus Garvey had grown dreadlocks and looked like Bob Marley as far as the hair is concerned, he would have never been made a national hero in Jamaica. Now, Bob Marley's sons credit their late father's lasting legacy to their efforts to keep his music alive, as well as Marley's ability to relate to a wide audience of people. I'll have you know that between all his boys in music and his girls, they have 28 Grammy Awards and counting. And most of them are still pretty young. Well, they all are still pretty young as far as a career in music goes. And they will continue to rack up these Grammys. Now, one of the things I have also noticed is that people continue to see Bob Marley as a human being. And this is based on who they think he was, based on what they have read, heard, and seen in the various interviews and taken from the music, according to Ziggy Marley. They hold him, Bob Marley, in high regard. But at the same time, they see him as someone who they could drink a beer with, smoke some weed with. He could have been their friend. Not a lot of people see Michael Jackson or Elvis Presley or any of these other figures in this manner. They're just seen as people who were really rich and really famous, but they were out of reach. Whereas to everybody around the world, Bob is seen as that guy next door. Yeah, he would go out and tour the world, and then he would come home and he would holler at you from across the fence. Wagwan, brethren. And you could probably go over there and you guys would roll up a spliff and have a nice conversation and a cup of coffee. But Bob's relatability as a person draws them to him. Nobody else in the history of music draws people to them in this way like Bob Marley does. Most recently, Bob Marley's life is depicted in a film called One Love. And this is a 2024 film, which I myself have not seen yet. But when I do, I will definitely be giving a breakdown completely of what I saw and my critique and honest opinion of what the film brought across on screen and what the film represents. Now, with that said, I will leave this one right here for you. And I'll say shout out to people for making this possible, for giving us a lot of this information that was in this article right here, allowing us to be able to bring this to you. May Bob Marley continue to soar high. I won't even say rest in peace, because Bob is not resting anywhere. If you look about you, you can see Bob Marley's energy about you. If you look amongst his children, you can see his energy vibrating, multiplying, and as vibrant as ever before. So continue to fly high is all I can say, right? And his message continues to reverberate throughout humanity across the globe. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about this one, and I'll catch you on the next video. It's SouFLoTV. I'm out. Peace.